It'll work, Hoops. Mates, firstly, Hoops, welcome to Captain's Call. I think we've done the full loop. Last time I spoke to the Waratahs skipper was Big Rob Simmons, but you stepped in, took over Simo, and what a week you had last week. We'll get into that, but welcome aboard, mate.
Yeah, thank you. It was, it was great being back in the role, but turned out being particularly nice with the result on the back end of it. I know Simo was stinging. He got so close to running out there on the park on Thursday, but just couldn't quite get there. So that was a good week to do it again, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And mate, talk us through that shine. I saw that we spoke off air. You've been pretty lucky so far this season, but Lady Luck got the better of you.
Yeah, I talked too soon. I think 2 weeks ago I was strutting around going, "Oh, geez, I haven't had a knock in quite a while." And then, sure enough, right before half time, and just right on the spot. And I've got paper skin, it seems, around my eyebrows, so they just opened straight up.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's go to that match last week, because I know there's been some frustrating parts of the Waratahs season. Well, there we go.
Lost it.
He's onto it. That's all right, mate. It's good. It's all part of it. And
there's someone at the front door, and he's trying to play guard dog. Yet he forgets he's like that big.
They've got the biggest hearts. It's only inverse proportional, isn't it? Smaller the dog, the more yap.
He's got some ticker, that's for sure.
But it's been at times a frustrating part of Super Rugby AU. You get a glimpse of it. You've been in really tight matches where you've lost at the death, so to speak. And there's been times where you just haven't had to put in a poor 40 minutes. So how important was it to have a great result on the weekend for the team, and what you've got ahead of you in the next sort of month of rugby?
Yeah, so Super Rugby AU has been a tricky one. It's been interesting. We've had 5 games now, and our first 3 we were definitely trending up. In the third game we just went down to, at the time, the Brums, who hadn't lost a game, right at the death of the game, and went down. But there was some really positive signs. Then we got hit pretty square between the eyes against the Rebels. They came out and dealt us a tough game. And we sort of felt like we took a step back. So when you have a game like that, you go into a bye week, gives you 2 weeks just to mull over, how it could have been different, how it could have looked. And it was a long 2 weeks. I think, when you go into a bye and you go into a bye with a loss, it's a long time until you're able to get back on the park and make amends. So we're all keen to make amends, and we were able to do that there against the Reds, who had a tough week themselves, but we stayed to our game, and I think we showed a bit of what we've been trying so hard to get for both competitions this year.
Yeah, and it's pleasing to get the result, because I know a lot of hard work has gone into your preparations throughout the season. But your take on Super Rugby AU, what has it been like playing, and what's it been like for you participating in Super Rugby competition post-COVID such as this?
I've been really impressed. First with the youth, the energy that's coming through in the teams that are playing, the individuals within those teams. It's been great. Look, I think the interesting thing is we've had the system. I've gone brain dead for the moment. System where you have each, South Africa have conferences.
That's it.
So we've had that conference system for a couple of years where you play each team twice. And in my opinion, they're always the hardest games for us, because there's Wallaby spots on the line. You're trying to top your conference to get that spot in the finals. So they're always the biggest games for us. And now you've just condensed it into that's all we're doing. So it's been hell for leather for the duration of this comp. And, seeing some really, like I said, some really good young players come through. I think, we've been quite lucky on the fact that, dealing with COVID, as you've mentioned, we've been playing a lot out of Sydney. And we're now about to go on the road a bit, which some other teams have had to sort of deal with. And that's a new challenge in itself, because it's a day travel, day of the game travel, which certainly complicates things.
Yeah, and that is something, I think, speaking to a lot of the captains from obviously the different teams, that travel piece, it's finding a rhythm, and then finding, I guess, and you can talk about this a lot, it's getting a routine, isn't it? And that's not a normal routine in Super Rugby, because when you play away, you often go there normally, maybe at the latest a day before, but the day of going up and back, trying to get the job done, getting focused, that takes a bit of getting used to, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does take a bit of getting used to. We had it in the first round against the Reds, and you sort of, it was the first round, so you're just so excited to get back on the road. But I think, in that moment, just, reflecting on another thing before I talk about the other stuff, but driving into Suncorp, off the bus, off the plane, it was, you probably took it for granted beforehand, like jumping on a domestic flight, going up to Brizzy and playing the Reds was sort of, something I've been lucky to do for quite a few years, but it's something that you wouldn't even bat your eyelid at. It's just another week in the position. But, I think I was sitting next to Simo on the bus and driving to see Suncorp. We're there about 6 hours before the game. You go, I took this for granted a bit, rocking up to play at one of Australia's great stadiums and, get to play some rugby, what we're paid to do and what we love to do. So that was cool. And then, look, it's a challenge because you get to the ground where usually you can focus and you can be on from that point, and really build your game. You're used to that. But to rock up at the ground 3 or 4 hours before when your bus would usually turn up, just, it's been a new experience for all teams. So we've done it once. We're doing it again this week. And we go up and play the Force in the Goldie at Seabus. And, hopefully now with one time under the belt, it's going to be good.
Yeah, so if you've got that time frame, man, that's a point no one else has mentioned, that time before the game. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time it's normally about 90 minutes, maximum 2 hours before you sort of kick off, you get to the ground. What's it like filling in time? What do you do as a team? Is it cards? Is it indoor cricket? What are you doing? Is it like all the different personalities? Some guys go over the side, have a sleep, listen to music. What do you do to get through that time?
Everyone did their own thing. There's a bit of games going on. Some guys just listening to music. There's all different personalities within the team. But mate, you know how it is. So much technology these days. There's iPads. Everyone's on their phone, or there's speakers flying around. So technology is a saviour there.
Oh, there you go. That's when it is good. But you talk about taking it for granted, which is a really good point, isn't it? I think COVID maybe reinforced that. Just how lucky you are to be a professional player and do something which you've loved doing. And I know you're never going to like talking about yourself. You never do. That's just your character, Oops. But mate, you've been doing it for a while, as you said. And this week, I believe, is a pretty special milestone, 150. Do you take the helmet off and just raise the bat and then mark middle leg again? Try to get to 200. What are you doing? It's such an incredible achievement. Well done.
I should ask you what to do.
Mate, I've never got to 150.
You got to about 137 tests. So
yeah, you've done past that. No, it's all right.
Mate, I'm on 99, not out, hopefully. So I've got one to get there just to tick over that 100. But how many super games you would have played? You would have played a truckload, right?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't 150. It was about 130 odd. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, you went past that years ago. Oops.
Yeah. Mate, I think a few more games probably helps us with that. But sorry, my dog is just annoying me. I don't know if
that's all good. There's a little French poodle. Look at that.
Mate, he's not a poodle, he's a bulldog. Come on.
Oh, bulldog, sorry. French bulldog, not poodle. Where's that come from?
He's insulted now.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, what's his name?
Yeah, George, actually.
Sorry, George. Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jorge.
Yeah, no. So, mate, good name, good name. I've got red now. I didn't even think about that when I showed him on camera. I should have probably
should have introduced us formally. Oops.
I should. Anyway, 150. It's come around quick. Even though I think I worked out in the year it's 10th or 11th Super Rugby season. They just fly by because rugby is so ever and being a professional athlete, you're so focused on you play the game on the weekend, you digest it, and you move on straight away to the next week. So you don't get a huge opportunity to smell the roses or get nostalgic on certain things, and you're ever moving forward. So I found out about that about 2 hours ago before I jumped on the call that was going to be the number, but exciting nonetheless. I think actually it should be Simo's as well, which is cool because I think, and I could be proven wrong, I don't know, but last week was meant to be his. He obviously didn't play, so we might do it together. 300th.
There we go.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be special? That's a special celebration. That is. I mean, and you talk about yourself and Simo. Incredible careers, incredible longevity. You've had success. You've won stuff. it's amazing. You never have time to reflect. You're right, because you're always moving forward. You're always thinking ahead. But what do you think are some of the keys to having that longevity in your career? If you could put it down to a couple of things, so to speak. But no, don't. If it's more than that, let us know. What has it meant to you to be able to have that longevity?
Yeah, I think it is a few things. I mean, you've got to want to do it because it's a hard game. It's demanding on you physically and mentally. I think all sport, definitely mentally, but rugby union physically, you are hurting yourself often. Just even their bumps and bruises. So you got to keep wanting to do it, and that's not just showcased on Saturday. That's tackling your mates at training and having to improve your skills as the week and your years go on. Is how can I improve my tackling or my ball carrying and stuff like that? And unfortunately, to improve that stuff, a lot of the time you just have to do it, and that's just a repetition. So I guess you got to want to do it, and there's got to be something there for you to keep pushing. And I think everyone probably has that. Understanding where your body, what and how your body best probably deals with certain things and how to get it in shape, get it back onto the field. And a lot of that is mental, but certainly understanding what treatment and stuff works for the individual is key. Actually, it doesn't sound like too many things, does it?
Yeah. Well, what about time away from the game?
Actually name it.
Yeah, it is. But what about time away from the game? How important is that as well? Like, that's all the stuff to get you ready. Is that important to you? Because I know I bumped into you a few times in Manly when we're just catching up, grabbing a coffee, doing what you do. How important is that, just to have that little bit of distance away from the game as well?
Yeah, I was lucky to be surrounded by some guys who really nailed that early on in my career. Adam Ashley Cooper's come to mind. Guys who I saw their ability to be super consistent was something that was really attractive to me. The ability for these guys to, they play a really good game on Saturday. How then the following Saturday comes around, that they're at that same level no matter what, and for guys like, I think Swoop always was really good to watch, because for people to recognise him having a really good game, he had to have an amazing game because his stand was so high. It
was so high, wasn't it? Exactly, yeah, so consistent.
So when you're a player, I think that just rolls out quality on quality games. Sometimes you can forget the quality of that player because they just do it every week. And Swoop was certainly someone like that among some other good guys, other guys. Dave Dennis in the environment at Waratahs was great for an all-round personality. He was so good and a good mate of mine. Having to see those guys and how being on for rugby, being, always sort of keeping one eye on it, because you can't just, for me, if I go too far away, then it's tough to come back. And that's not thinking about rugby, that's just more me physically, in terms of eating right and stuff like that. But that's something I enjoy anyway. But certainly for me, surfing these days, mate, I tried my hand at golf. You're
good at golf. It's good, mate. Everyone's learning.
Mate, you were very nice to me when we had that day at the range, and you're just drilling them straight, and I'm doing this short, horrendous backswing and getting them, just off the tee. So I've moved away from golf, mate. It's no longer
come
a
on.
thing.
Morikawa, you seen win yesterday? It's got to inspire you. Young 23-year-old.
No,
come
mate.
on.
No,
get back on the horse.
I should, because I was starting to get better. My club selection was improving, but then I'm like, you know what? I just need to stay in the surf.
No, I know. Balance it out. There's some nasty things in the surf. You can't get eaten by a shark on the golf course.
Yeah, you can get a crocodile.
True. In Africa.
Mate, there's some pretty poor players to play with too, so you could cop a ball in the back of the head if you're not careful. So,
well, that actually leads into a bit of that's touring and being there. You've spoken about some of your former teammates who had a big impact on you. You're captain on the weekends. Does it seem just like yesterday when you were one of the young players wanting to test yourself in Super Rugby, and now you are who you are, you're playing your 150th. How important is it to pass on to some of the younger players, and just talk me through how they've developed within the Waratahs squad? I could name a number of them. Obviously, I'm more focused around the halves. Will Harrison, I think he's just improved as the year's gone on, but you train with them every day. You're around them all the time. How have you seen them evolve in terms of Super Rugby this year?
Look, they have a thirst for knowledge, some of those guys. So Will Harrison really just dying to learn his game, grow his game, and work with the players around him. I think Jake, who's obviously been known to a lot of guys, Jake Gordon for a long time.
Yeah.
His energy to get back on the park after a long layoff was infectious. And then your Angus Bell, your props, Tom Horton. I could name a lot of guys. Ram. James Ram.
John Ram. James Ram. John. I keep calling him John Ram. Even my commentator call him John Ram. Probably hits it as far as
he was a guy that played thirds at Joey's at school. Someone told me the other day, and then dominates on a wing on the weekend for a Super Rugby team. That's credit to some of these guys want to be involved in Waratahs and Australian rugby. So that's awesome. And it was so infectious for me, highlighted so much in the COVID period. We had the layoff, we came back into mini groups, and I was lucky to be put in a young group. So we're training groups of 9 plus a coach. And these guys were just chomping at the bit every day to get in. We're touching each other with pool noodles and stuff like that, and they just couldn't get enough of it. Yeah. So that was cool to be a part of, and I guess, trying to pass something on, certainly something would like to be able to do in whatever capacity.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, you do it every week. You turn up and play, mate. But just your actions speak a lot. What you expect from the playing group. But on that, like we spoke about Super Rugby AU. There's been some news just in the past 24 hours about what it may or may not look like next year. What it may look like. There's 2 options. Might involve a Trans-Tasman, or it could be just here within Australia. From a playing group, what's your take on what it looks like, the horizon in terms of Super Rugby? And obviously, there's another level of competition which is international. But what we're talking about and what we're dealing with here is Super Rugby AU. What's your first impressions of what you've heard and read about?
I'm excited by all the options. We're a bit hamstrung by what, who knows what 6 to 8 months could look like. So I'm not holding my breath on anything in particular. I know that this competition that we've been dealt this year, the Super Rugby AU, was something that we had a couple of weeks run into. And now, as we're starting to get into the pointy end of the competition, is getting a good feeling amongst the players. And then from the result on the weekend, there's a lot of buzz around fans of the game too, and ex-players, which was really pleasing. So, look, if it's the domestic or if it's the Trans-Tasman, both are very attractive, I think, for the player and the viewer.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Not just from commentating and watching the games that I've televised. It's been some great rugby. Like the Brumbies got smacked on the weekend by the Rebels, and the Rebels played just credible rugby. They were looking, in many ways, they're reminding of what you were just saying earlier. They've shown some glimpses. They've been in some tight games, but they've found a bit of mojo. So that was an emphatic victory. And you can see this next run, particularly your performance on the weekend, of what you did in that first half, and then we're really clinical in the second. You've got a good 3-week run. You've got the Force. Then you obviously have the Brumbies, which will be a big match. Then you have the Rebels who are running into some form. I've just been so impressed with the attitude and intent from all the teams involved with Super Rugby AU, Force included. They've got off to some red-hot starts, and they don't go away. I think it's really brought the best out of the players here in Australia.
Yeah, just, I guess, looking at us this week against the Force, we had them for their first game in the competition, and they put it to us straight away in the first 40 minutes. They're a different team now, and a better team at that. When we're coming up against them the second time around, and they've, with a few nice additions to their team, playing wise, some good experience there through the halves and the backs. Going to be a real challenge. So, it is a cool dynamic that you do play a team when they could be completely different when you play in the second time around. And, we've got them off a bye. The Reds had us off a bye the week before, which is another dynamic where you get your teams coming off a bye or after a long stretch of games is an interesting factor, and something you sort of have to utilise as you go into it.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? You talk about coming off a bye. I know that was the case with the Rebels. Well, not so much the Rebels. The Rebels were disappointed, obviously, when they lost. Oh, they didn't lose it. It was a Super Rugby Super Time. and it was kind of the draw. Like no one likes that at the end of it. No one likes a draw, and their learnings they had from it, and then they go into that Super Rugby super time against the Force, and then they lifted Isi Naisarani scores. They carry that momentum and smack the Brumbies, but then you're facing a Force team, which obviously they're off the back of that super time loss to the Rebels. You know what it's like when you've come off that loss. You spoke about it earlier. They're going to be a dangerous team this weekend, aren't they? Because you know they're so close to creating that bit of history, and you don't want to be the part of the history, do you? In terms of the Force having their Super Rugby AU win, first victory rather.
Yeah, that's right. We know they'll be chomping at the bit. We've got to grow on our game. We understand the threats that the Force are going to bring, and they're going to have some stuff that we don't know about. You know, some stuff they will pull out of the hat. As a team that hasn't won a game with nothing to lose can certainly do. And that's the way I assume they're going to attack it, with the idea that it's, there's everything to play for, like you said, and also, without the unshackled, which can be very dangerous against certain teams, and come unstuck against the Force a few times in my career because, they have a really strong emphasis on taking on the Waratahs as well. So we've got to grow on our game. 6-day turnaround into that, we're fired up. I think it's nice that it's a 6-day turnaround. The fact that we can get straight back on task and get into another game and not sit on it for too long. And we're into it today, that's for sure.
Oh, that's good, because I think that we always talk about it, don't we? You hear commentators talking about it, you hear players, coaches talking about it, that buzzword momentum, but that comes from being consistent, doesn't it? And you just want to get in that nice, consistent habit of preparing well, but then executing on a week-to-week basis. Otherwise, it becomes a frustrating horse to keep jumping aboard. I think that's what Super Rugby always has done, but particularly, I think Super Rugby AU with this really condensed, and it's a sprint, isn't it? It really is a sprint. You've got pretty much a month of round games to jostle to get yourself into that finals. So it's about being consistent and being really dynamic over this next month of rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, for us, we were at the halfway mark. We go 4 games by, and then finals. So we hit that four game mark into our bye, and 1 win and a couple close losses, bonus point losses, and a bad loss. And we're like, if we don't start making some, shaking the tree a bit here, we're going to miss out. And it's only it's 4 games into the season. Yeah. So, we were good enough to get put ourselves back in the mix now and be in control of our own destiny. And that's, as any team would want to be going into the last few rounds is in control, where it's, on the back of our own performances, we can dictate our future.
Yeah, it's true. And I think the rugby spectators have really enjoyed it from what I've been seeing and hearing around the traps because of that. And more importantly too, the law changes. Like, I think there's been some really positive law changes on both sides of the ball. You've played in it. You were skipper last week. What's your take on the law changes in Super Rugby AU?
Well, I mean, we stuffed one up last week. So, but apparently it didn't even change for this competition. But Jack, we're doing a pick and drive, and ever since I played rugby, you can score on the post.
Yeah, it's changed. It has.
Yeah, and
George,
he's lost his ball and there's injury. Sorry, and Jack's picked it up and put it straight on the post, and we've sort of gone like, okay, try time. And all the Reds players knew that was, knew it wasn't a try. So they've all gone, no try, and we're like, oh God, And then we had a laugh about it later. Luckily, the game wasn't on the line, but just little. We've made a couple errors there. The dropout's been cool. I've liked that. Yep. I think that's kept the ball in play.
Hasn't it? It certainly has.
Yeah. And also puts a lot more, it rewards good kicking. So some teams, you put it deep and it just rolls into the in goal, and they have to work it out of there. They can't just put it down, go to 22 and get a reset. So I quite like the fact they brought in that tactical kicking stuff.
Rebels used it really well last week against the Brumbies. Really clever stuff.
I think Matt Tamur brought that rule in for himself. So that's
exactly.
He's been pretty big on that, and he's making it work for him.
It's a positive rule, because then, as you said, if you're the attacking team, you're going to get the restart, even if you can drop it out 60 metres, that's a great restart. You're still going to be carrying the ball well and truly into the defensive team's side of halfway and ready to play. So there's no let up. It really keeps the ball in play and promotes positive rugby. That's what I've loved about it too.
Yeah. Have you found the rule changes good?
Yeah, they have. And again, it's rewarding not kicking for the sake of kicking, but really smart kicking. It forces the back three back. I spoke with Matt Tamur. So the back three have to be prepared. They don't want to get 50-22s or 22-50s against them because you're giving the ball back. But it also then promotes the ability to play. So you can exit with the kick, which can also exit using the ball in hand, which I think has been a nice that mixed strategy and people backing themselves a bit. Conditions play a bit, have a fair bit to do with it, don't they? Because they do change. Matt Tamur said it last week. Like you might start the game and it's a little bit damp and greasy, but by the time the Leichhardt fog comes in or whatever it is, it gets damp and it becomes like weather rugby. So you have to make those adjustments, and that might be kicking. How do you use the ball in hand? No, I found it really interesting seeing how everyone's adapted to those new rules.
Yeah, it's been good. The 50-22 one's been funny because you forget so quickly where the ruck originated from. So sometimes we've run into the lineouts going, yeah, it's our ball back. And they're like, no. You brought it back in and then you kicked it in. So the refs have, had their work cut out for them to get it right because we certainly haven't got it right a lot of the time. But we're getting close. We've had a couple pay off for us, and buzzword momentum. That's a huge momentum when you can, just get a 30+ meter advantage off, gain off a kick and get the ball back. With a set piece, which is often inside the 22, is really hard to defend. So that's been cool.
No, it's been good. Well, I know you've got a very busy few weeks ahead, starting with the Force, and as I said, get some consistency. It's been great to see you guys back in the winning circle, Hoops, and congratulations on your 150th. I know there's many more in you, and I think we've covered off on everything on the captain's call, and I believe you need to go feed George the guard dog, the French bulldog. Yeah. They say dogs look like their owners. There's a bit of French. Is Hooper French?
Yeah, his face is pretty squished, and mine's getting that way these days. So, yeah, probably right. And he's small, so he needs to go for a walk. He's just gonna be dancy because he needs to go for a walk. But I'll take him down soon, and he'll be right.
I'll better let you get to duties, mate. Thanks for taking time out for the captain's call, Hoops. Good luck this weekend and the remainder of the tournament, mate.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.